We shall continue the general debate. The Assembly will hear a statement by His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and President of the Palestinian Authority. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. I have great pleasure in welcoming the Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and President of the Palestinian Authority, His Excellency Mahmoud Abbas, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the Compassionate and the Merciful, President of the General Assembly, Mr. Jeremic, Excellencies, Head of Delegations, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to begin by extending appreciation to the heads of all delegations who, in their statements to this Assembly, have stressed the urgency for progress towards the realization of a just peace in our region that allows for the fulfillment by the Palestinian people of their inalienable and national rights. Ladies and gentlemen, developments over the past year have confirmed what we have persistently drawn attention to and warned of: the catastrophic danger of the racist settler colonization of our country. During the past months, attacks by terrorist militias of Israeli settlers have become a daily reality, with at least 535 attacks perpetrated since the beginning of this year. We are facing relentless waves of attacks against our people, our mosques, churches and monasteries, and our homes and schools. They are unleashing their venom against our trees, fields, crops and properties, and our people have become fixed targets for acts of killing and abuse, with the complete collusion of the occupying forces and the Israeli government. The escalation of settlers' attacks should not surprise anyone, for it is the inherent byproduct of the continuation of occupation and a government policy that deliberately fosters settlements and settlers and deems their satisfaction to be its absolute priority. And it is the inherent byproduct of the racist climate fueled by a culture of incitement in the Israeli curriculum and extremist opinions which are rife with hatred and are rooted in a series of discriminatory laws created and enacted over the years against the Palestinian people, as well as by the security apparatus and courts, which provide excuse after excuse for settlers' crimes and for their accelerated release should one of them happen to be arrested, and by official and military commissions of inquiry which fabricate excuses for soldiers who have committed what are clearly considered war crimes and perpetrated acts of murder, torture, and abuse of peaceful civilians. Over the past year, since the convening of the General Assembly's previous session, the occupying powers persisted with their settlement campaigns, focusing on Jerusalem and its environs. It is a campaign clearly and deliberately aimed at altering the city's historic character and glorious image of the holy city etched in the minds of mankind. It is a campaign of ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people via the demolition of their homes and prevention of their construction, the revocation of residency rights, the denial of basic services, especially with regard to the construction of schools, the closure of institutions, and the impoverishment of Jerusalem's community via a siege behind walls and checkpoints, choking the city and preventing millions of Palestinians from freely accessing its mosques, churches, schools, hospitals, and markets. The occupying power has also continued its construction and expansion of settlements in different areas throughout the West Bank and continued its suffocating blockade as well as raids and attacks against our people in the Gaza Strip, who to this day continue to suffer from the disastrous impact of the destructive war of aggression committed against them years ago. Nearly 5,000 Palestinians also remain captive as prisoners and detainees of conscience in Israeli jails. We call on the international community to compel the government of Israel to respect the Geneva Conventions, to investigate the conditions of the detention of the Palestinian prisoners and detainees, stressing the need for their release. They are soldiers in their people's struggle for freedom, independence, and peace. At the same time, the occupying power continues to tighten the siege and to impose severe restrictions of movement, preventing the Palestinian Authority from implementing vital infrastructure projects and providing services to its citizens, who are also being prevented from cultivating their land and deprived from water for irrigation. It is also obstructing the establishment of agricultural, industrial, tourism, and housing projects by the private sector in vast areas of the occupied Palestinian territory, which are classified as areas subject to the absolute control of occupation, encompassing approximately 60% of the West Bank territory. The occupying power continues to deliberately demolish what the PNA is building. Projects funded by donor brethren and friends, and destroying the PNA's projects involving building roads, simple homes for its citizens, and agricultural facilities. In fact, over the past 12 months, the Israeli occupying forces demolished 510 Palestinian structures in these areas, displacing 770 Palestinians from their homes. These measures have caused great damage to our economy and impeded our development programs and private sector activity. They compound the socio-economic difficulties of our people under occupation, a fact confirmed by international financial institutions. Israel's overall policy is ultimately leading to the weakening of the PNA, undermining its ability to carry out its functions and to implement its obligations, which threatens to undermine its very existence or threaten its collapse. All of this is taking place in the context of an Israeli political discourse that does not hesitate to brandish aggressive, extremist positions, which in many aspects and its practical application on the ground is inciting religious conflict. This is something we firmly reject based on our principles and convictions, and due to our understanding of what it means to fuel such fires in this very sensitive area full of explosive flashpoints, and how it can fuel the action of extremists from various quarters, especially those trying to use tolerant, monotheistic religions as an ideological justification for their terrorism. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, we on our part, as proof of our seriousness and our sincere intention to create an opening in this impasse, conducted exploratory talks with the Israeli government at the beginning of this year upon the initiative of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. We have also encouraged the expressed desires of several countries to contribute to efforts to break the cycle of deadlock. We have also ourselves undertaken initiatives to create favorable conditions for the resumption of negotiations. Unfortunately, however, the result of all these initiatives has been very negative. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, there can only be one reading of the Israeli government's actions in our homeland and of the positions it has presented us with regarding the substance of a permanent status agreement to end the conflict and achieve peace. That one understanding leads to one conclusion, that the Israeli government rejects the two-state solution. The two-state solution, namely the state of Palestine coexisting alongside the state of Israel, represents the spirit and essence of the historic compromise embodied in the Oslo Declaration of Principles, signed 19 years ago between the PLO and the government of Israel under the auspices of the United States in the White House lawn, a compromise by which the Palestinian people accepted to establish their state on only 22% of the territory of historic Palestine for the sake of making peace. The recent years have actually witnessed a systematic acceleration and intensification of Israeli measures aimed at emptying the Oslo Accord of their meanings while simultaneously building facts on the ground in the occupied Palestinian territory that are making the implementation of the accords extremely difficult, if not completely impossible. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the Israeli government aims to continue its occupation of East Jerusalem, to de facto annex large areas of the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory, and to continue occupying a large portion of the territory under different pretexts. It refuses to engage in any serious discussion of the issue of the Palestinian refugees. It wants to continue its occupation of Palestinian water aquifers and its control over the most fertile agricultural areas in our land, as well as over our air, skies, borders, and our life in its entirety. The final map and borders that can be drawn in accordance with Israel's official positions reveal to us the following: small Palestinian enclaves surrounded by large Israeli blocks and walls, checkpoints, and vast security zones and roads devoted to settlers. Thus, the enclaves would remain subject to the full dominance of military colonial occupation, is packaged under new names such as the unilateral plan for a so-called state with provisional borders. I repeat, a state with provisional borders. This is a project that we categorically reject from A to Z because it shall not bring about peace. Mr. President, Israel refuses to end the occupation and refuses to allow the Palestinian people to attain their rights and freedom, and rejects the establishment of the State of Palestine. Israel is promising the Palestinian people a new catastrophe, a new Nakba, a new setback. I speak on behalf of an angry people, a people that feels that while they press for their rights to freedom, adopt a culture of peace, and adhere to the principles and rules of international law and resolutions of international legitimacy, rewards continue to be illogically bestowed upon Israel, whose government pursues a policy of war, occupation, and settler colonization. And Israel continues to be permitted to enjoy impunity, and some continue to obstruct the adoption of a decisive position regarding its violations of international law and covenants. This, in fact, represents a license for the occupation to continue its policy of dispossession and ethnic cleansing, and encourages it to entrench its system of apartheid against the Palestinian people. Ladies and gentlemen, despite our genuine feelings of anger, we, in the name of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, which will not accept to be divided into two, and we shall not allow it to be divided into two. We are the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. I reaffirm without hesitation that we are as committed to peace and international legitimacy and its covenants as much as we are equally and by the same measures upholding our inalienable rights and aspirations. We reaffirm that we are committed to nonviolence. We reject terrorism in all its forms, particularly state terrorism. Despite our feelings of disappointment and our despair, we continue to sincerely extend our hands in peace to the Israeli people to make peace. We realize that ultimately the two peoples must live and coexist, each in their respective state in the Holy Land. Further, we also realize that progress towards making peace is through negotiations between the Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel. Despite all the complexities of the prevailing reality and all the frustrations that abound, we say before the international community there is still a chance, maybe the last, to save the two-state solution and to salvage peace. However, this urgent task must be pursued via a new approach. Whoever rushes to advise us to repeat an experience that has proven to be futile, negotiations with the Israeli government without clear terms of reference, must understand that this will result in a reproduction of failure and again provide a cover for consecrating occupation, and will deal the final blow to an already dying peace process. And those who advise us to wait must realize that the hotbeds of tension, the festering situation in our country and our region has its own timing and can neither withstand further procrastination or delay, nor is it amenable to relegation to the bottom of the global agenda. The approach required for salvaging the chance of peace must first and foremost be predicated on the understanding that the racial settler colonization must be condemned, punished, and boycotted, in order for it to be completely halted and eliminated. This approach also requires a reaffirmation and adherence to the terms of reference and basics of the solution to the conflict, which have been endorsed by all of you. The core components of a just solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict do not require belaboring the point. Rather, what is needed is the will to implement these components. Marathon negotiations are not required to define them. Rather, what is needed is the sincere intention to reach peace. And those components are by no means a mysterious puzzle or intractable riddle. Rather, they are the clearest and most logical secrets in the world. This includes, in brief, the establishment of an independent state of Palestine with East Jerusalem as its capital over the entire territory occupied by Israel since 1967, and the realization of a just, agreed solution to the Palestine refugee issues in accordance with Resolution 194 Roman 3 as prescribed by the Arab Peace Initiative. Indeed, the fundamental components of the solution to the conflict exist in the documents and resolutions of the United Nations. You have it. It is also endorsed in the resolutions of regional organizations, beginning with the League of Arab States, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Non-Aligned Movement, and the African Union. They can be also found in the statements of the European Union and the International Quartet. However, what's the use of all of those terms of reference if Israel continues to refuse and is encouraged to continue to oppose these terms of reference? The international community, embodied in the United Nations, is required now more than ever before to uphold its responsibilities. The Security Council is called upon to urgently adopt a resolution comprising the basis and foundations for a solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict that would serve as a binding term of reference and a guidance for all if the vision of the two states, Israel and Palestine, is to survive, and if peace is to prevail in the land of peace, the birthplace of Jesus, peace be upon him, the ascension of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the final resting place of Abraham, peace be upon him, Palestine, the land of the three monotheistic religions. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, all things considered, the establishment of a free and independent state of Palestine is a sacred right of the Palestinian people and a due entitlement that must be realized, for it has been long overdue for too many decades. It's not a grant bestowed upon us by anyone. It is a right, and the Palestinian people is entitled to this right. At the same time, the Palestinian National Authority has affirmed, through implementation of its state institution building program, the ability to create an advanced model for an effective modern state through the development of the performance of its institutions, public finance management, through the adoption of transparency, accountability, and rules of good governance. These achievements have been deemed by the Ad hoc Liaison Committee, the World Bank, and the IMF to constitute an impressive undertaking and success story, one that was again commended in the latest report just released a few days ago, confirming the full Palestinian Authority's readiness to for the transition to an independent state, while at the same time stressing that the Israeli occupation remains the only obstacle to the realization of the state of Palestine. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, when a year ago during the previous session of the General Assembly, we submitted our application for consideration by the Security Council to allow the state of Palestine to assume its rightful place among the community of nations as a full member in the United Nations, a major and hostile uproar was voiced by some against this political, diplomatic, peaceful step par excellence aimed at saving the peace process by asserting its basis and foundation. However, our endeavor was aborted despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of the countries of the world supported and continues to support our application. I see not even a single reason for opposing this request. Yet, when the countries of the world had the opportunity to declare their stance without any restrictions or veto last autumn, they voted. They voted despite enormous pressures in strong support of the acceptance of Palestine as a member of UNESCO. A year has passed, and Palestine, the homeland of Mahmoud Darwish, the homeland of Edward Said, is playing its role in UNESCO with high responsibility and professionalism. Palestine is committed to international conventions. It's cooperating with all member states in order to advance the objectives of the organization. It is providing a model of what its positive, constructive contribution in international organizations would be. In order to enhance the chances for peace, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue our efforts to obtain full membership for Palestine at the United Nations. And for the same purpose, we have begun intensive consultations with various regional organizations and member states aimed at having the General Assembly adopt a resolution considering the state of Palestine a non-member state of the United Nations during this session. We are confident that the vast majority of the countries of the world support our endeavor aimed at salvaging the chances for a just peace. In our endeavor, we do not seek to delegitimize an existing state, that is Israel, but rather to assert the state that must be realized, that is Palestine. We are not attempting to delegitimize them. They are trying to delegitimize us. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, more than 64 years have passed since Al-Nakba, and a large portion of those who were its immediate victims and witnessed its horrors have died with their memories preserved in their minds and hearts about their beautiful world that was devastated, their warm homes that were demolished, and their peaceful villages that were erased from existence, and about the Renaissance that was undermined, about their loved ones, dear men, women, and children who were killed in wars, massacres, attacks, raids, and incursions, and about their beautiful country that was the beacon of coexistence, tolerance, progress, and a crossroads of civilization. They died in the camps of displacement and refuge to which they were expelled, following their uprooting from their homeland as they awaited the moment in which they would resume their suspended lives and complete their journey that was interrupted and repair their shattered dreams. They died while they clung to their legitimate human right to justice and freedom and to redress the historic, unprecedented injustice inflicted upon them. Hasn't the time come to undo this injustice? At present, 77% of the Palestinian people are under the age of 35. Although they did not experience the horrors of Al-Nakba, they know very well all its horrendous details from the accounts told to them by their parents and grandparents who endured it. And they are suffering from its ongoing effects until today and every day as a result of the practices of the occupation and the settlers on a land that is diminishing and a horizon before them that is blocked against their simple, ordinary dreams. They see their homeland and their present and future vulnerable to continued usurpation, and they say firmly, we shall not allow a new Nakba to happen. I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the brave Palestinian people will not allow themselves to be the victim of a new Nakba, will not allow that. We will stay in our land. My people will continue their epic steadfastness and their eternal survival journey in their beloved homeland, every inch of which carries the evidence and landmarks affirming their roots and unique connection throughout ancient history. There is no homeland for us except Palestine, and there is no land for us but Palestine. We shall not accept an alternative homeland nor an alternative land. Palestine is our homeland and shall remain our homeland. Our people will continue to build the institutions of their state and will continue to strive to achieve national reconciliation to restore the unity of our nation, people, and institutions via resorting to the ballot boxes, which will confirm our people's pluralistic democratic choice. Our people are also determined to continue peaceful popular resistance, I repeat, consistent with international humanitarian law against the occupation, against settler occupation, and for the sake of freedom, independence, and peace. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, prevent the occurrence of a new Nakba in the Holy Land. Prevent the occurrence of a new Nakba in the Holy Land. Support the realization of a free, independent state of Palestine now. Let peace be victorious before it is too late. Peace be upon you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization and President of the Palestinian Authority for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency.
The Assembly will now hear a statement by His Excellency Janez Janša, Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia. I request protocol to escort His Excellency.